Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the final session of the IPO Education Foundation Awards and Celebration. I'm delighted to be here today. My name is Bart Eppenauer, and I'm a partner at the law firm of Shook, Hardy & Bacon in Seattle. And we're going to have a great discussion with Alice Chun, who is the CEO and founder of Solight Design, as well as Cs95, and we're going to talk all about that and looking forward to doing so. So with that, maybe Alice, could I just ask you to introduce yourself more fully and
Sure.
tell us a little about yourself?
Absolutely. So thank you, everyone. It's great to have everyone here. I'm Alice Chun. I'm the inventor of a number of different products. One is the Solar Puff, which is a light box that's completely solar and pops open into a magic cube. And I invented this to replace kerosene in regions where there's no electricity. And my new invention that we just filed a non-provisional patent for is called Cs95 Mask. And this is the first self-adhering, transparent N95 mask. So it just goes on your face with no ear loops and replaceable filters, and comes off with an emulsion that basically sticks to your face. And I used to be a professor in material technology at Columbia University, as well as University of Pennsylvania, and started to focus on solar energy after the birth of my son, realizing that he had asthma, and doing all the research on children with asthma. It turns out that 75% of the pollution in the air comes from buildings, not from cars, when you're living in urban context. So that's what I decided to focus on, solar energy. And that eventually led to the invention of the solar lights.
Well, that's incredible that they're such innovative products. I'm actually a customer. After I first met Alice, I went and ordered some of the solar lights, and they are unbelievable. I can't wait to give them away for holiday presents. So I'm going to be the coolest person.
Nice.
For those
Great.
that nobody will see them coming. But Alice, so how did you make your way to become an inventor and an entrepreneur? You just mentioned that you were a professor, and sort of you have the personal story. Did you always know that you might want to be an inventor or an entrepreneur, or how did all that unfold?
Well, I like to tell young students that you can never really understand the trajectory of your path until you look behind you. And sometimes your profession will find you as opposed to you trying to find a profession. So in terms of being a social entrepreneur, it was purely by accident that I basically had a gut-wrenching heart meltdown when the Haiti earthquake happened. And I was teaching at Columbia at the time. I was teaching architecture, and it was purely through empathy that made me act to completely change my studio at Columbia to be an innovation studio to help Haiti, because climate change has increasingly created natural disasters more frequently, and it's was something that compelled me to change my path in a small way while I was still teaching. And then that led to the application of all of my research with solar energy once I realized that in Haiti, only 12% of the country is electrified, and people living on $3 a day were using kerosene to light their world at night, and they were spending up to 30% of their income on kerosene. So, and I thought to myself, if they could save that money that they're spending on kerosene, they could use it for food, for clothing, for their education, for their children. And so I researched every single solar light out on the market, and they were all big and bulky and heavy and plastic. Ours are completely recyclable, and they flat pack so you can fit hundreds in a box versus the regular lanterns that you see, you can only fit 8 in a box. So I guess the thing that I find interesting is that when kids think about time, you think about it as a linear trajectory, but actually the Greeks believed that there's actually 2 characters of time. The one character is called Chronos, and he is old with a long beard and is very consistent and predictable. And that line of time is straight. And then the other character of time, his name is Kairos, and he has a bald head, so you can't grab him by the hair from behind. He has wings on his feet, and he's unpredictable. And his line of time goes like this, and it's erratic. So when those 2 lines of time intersect, those are the moments of opportunity, and those are the moments of invention. And the origins of invention are inextricably linked to opportunity. And so that's where you have to keep your eyes peeled in terms of observing the world around you, the timeline of every day versus the things that happen unexpectedly, and taking advantage of that.
That is amazing advice. I've been an IP attorney for many years, and I've never heard invention and opportunity expressed like that. So that's actually quite brilliant. Thank you for that. So, I mean, literally, you were in Haiti. You saw an opportunity, or you saw a need, a problem, right? And you actually did something about it. So how long did it take, like from the time that you said you researched all different forms of solar lights, and you knew they weren't sufficient? What did that sort of process look like in more depth? What's in sort of the timeline and the starts and all that sort of thing?
So everyone has a different trajectory of time, but my research, and I guess it's because of my professor background, I spent 3 years of field testing in Haiti in the Central Plateau with farmers, and most of the farmers were women actually, and to see how the light would function, if it would last. That is a completely different process than what happened with the Cs95 mask. I didn't do any field testing, and in fact, I did a rapid test in terms of testing locally. But in terms of the patent process, the solar puff the solar lanterns are basically took 3 years for the whole cycle of going through the United States Patent and Trademark Office and getting notices versus eventually getting an allowance. And then for the CS95 mask, I was basically in lockdown and realized the need and the incredible harm that regular masks are doing to the environment and our faces, and cutting off our social connection with each other, that I felt this urgent need to develop something new for healthcare and the general public. That's
amazing. By the way, just for our audience participants, if you have questions for Alice, you can just put those in the Q&A and we'll see them and we'll take them. So feel free to shoot some questions over at any time. So you talked about the patenting process, and I do want to talk a little bit about that. But in terms of your product, how you did field testing, you tried different materials. I mean, was that just an iterative process?
Yeah,
How did that kind of work?
So you know how Einstein says innovation is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration.
Yes.
So
yes.
the whole patent process is the 99% of, but you need to have an idea, and then you need to have a thing that represents the idea. It could be through words, it could be through drawings, and then you have the prototype, which means, I think technically it's called a working prototype, that can be filed. So in that process, the reiterations of improving each step can take hundreds of iterations. For the solar lights, it took hundreds, really, maybe 500.
Wow.
And then for the mask, definitely at least 100 different reiterations, tests. And I have to really point out to everyone that you're not going to get it the first time, but you'll probably get it maybe the 10th or 18th time. That the failures are the most important part of the process, to learn through the failures. And it's not a failure, it's not a mistake, it's progress. And it's how you interpret what happens that's important. The other thing I want to point out is, in the patent process, I'm a minority. I'm a minority in that I'm Asian, I'm Korean by background, but being a female is also very, very marginalized in the patent office. Only 8% women inventors are on patents. And I think that's too low of a number. And I encourage girls and young women all over, everywhere, to step up and claim your fierce perseverance and imagination and brilliance to consider being an inventor. So the mother of invention is necessity, and the daughter of invention is curiosity. So those are two female characters. But yet females are a very, very small minority in terms of inventors here in the United States.
Yeah, that is not well known and not well understood. It's becoming much more well understood, I think, particularly for I think people that follow IP, follow patents, but I think the general public, if they realize that is really it's just an untenable situation. It's got to change, and there's just so much that is not being done by virtue of the progress we can make because of that sort of disparity. We do have a question from the audience. Thank you very much. The question is, how did you fund your product, and did you have to get investors?
Yes, I did. My first product, in the beginning, we did, we bootstrapped, and then we did a Kickstarter, a crowdfunding campaign. The crowdfunding campaign of Kickstarter and Indiegogo do not require any SEC conditions. It is called a pledge, which is a donation to the realization of an idea. And when they pledge, they have the prospect of gaining a reward. The reward is the product itself. But there's another crowdfunding platform that is registered with the SEC, where the crowdfunding donations or pledges go directly into an SVP line on the cap table, and people can invest, literally invest for $100 to have some ownership stake in the company.
Did you do both of those for Solight Design or just Kickstarter?
Actually, for Kickstarter, I did that with Solight Design, and I did a Kickstarter for CS95, and we raised about $500,000 in 30 days.
That's amazing. And did you raised $500,000 on both of them, because they were separate?
Yeah,
First Solight,
right.
that's incredible.
And I have to mention that it's not easy, but you can do it. I believe anyone can do it. I feel like if I can do it, anyone can do it. But it's not an easy process. You have to be very focused and disciplined and think 5 steps ahead. So one of my mentors used to tell me that a great architect has the hands of an angel and the mind of a thief. And I feel that that's what an entrepreneur should have, is the hands of an angel and the mind of a thief. And the mind of the thief is not about, stealing. It's more about being resourceful, being gritty, being thrifty, and being able to think 5 steps ahead until eventually you can actually see around corners.
That's amazing. So, sort of from a timing perspective, when you sort of put your product out there, we can take either Solight and maybe if they were the same or if they were different experiences, but you put your Kickstarter out there. Did you already have a patent application on file, or did you sort of start raising funds and then go to the patent office?
So I'd encourage everyone to always file a patent first. It can be a provisional patent because you're not, a provisional patent is less expensive than a non-provisional patent, but it will kind of be a space saver for your idea at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And you have 1 year to file the non-provisional. During that time, you can do a crowdfunding campaign, you can raise investment in that time. If you're not able to do it within that framework of time, then it's probably not a good path for you, or you're going to have to get funding from another source. So I would encourage everyone to file a patent early on. You can't, if you post anything publicly on the web, the internet, you're basically putting it out into the public realm, and your patent's not protected at that point. So you have to protect it before you put it out on the internet.
Okay, that's terrific advice. Speaking of, like, when you put your invention, or you go to somebody, or you're working with some people, or the testing, what are some of the things that you would recommend inventors or entrepreneurs? They have a great idea, they have maybe a working model, but they want to go talk to somebody for help, or they want to work with somebody where they can get materials, or just anybody where they might need either assistance or just otherwise have a need to go talk to somebody else. what's that dynamic, and what should people think about when they get ready to go to talk to somebody? And I think the reason I'm asking the question is because it's pretty easy for someone to say, great idea, I don't need you, I'm going to go do that myself. How do you kind of deal with that situation?
So as you know, being a patent attorney, just get an NDA. You can get an MNDA, which is a mutual non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, and have just a boilerplate NDA with you before you talk to anyone, and then have them sign it before you share any of that information. This will be before you put it on the internet, before you share it publicly, so that you protect your idea. And it doesn't, an NDA doesn't cost that much money. You can get a simple one off of the internet. You can also go to a patent attorney to get one, but that's going to cost you money. So in any case, that's what I would do, and that's what my patent attorney always suggests I should do before we talk to anyone about a new idea. The other thing, before you go talk to people about your idea, you should have a very clear understanding of what your idea is and how it will benefit people. Like, what is the impact that it's going to have? How is it going to make lives better? And whether it's through words or through drawings or a working prototype, you may not know how to make a prototype. So you're going to have to find people that have an expertise in that field. So I would strongly encourage a cross section through multiple disciplines in your group of friends. And one of the most important things about being in business and being an entrepreneur is relationships, human relationships. And that begins from, before you even start. So I would encourage you to really, really be picky about who you have surrounding you and who you talk to and share your ideas, and that you develop that relationship of trust.
That's excellent advice. Have you had any sort of experiences where you thought that, you might have had that sort of trust, and it turns out that it didn't go that way? And
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think everyone has these failure moments where you trust someone and you think that they're going to be doing all of these things because they say they're going to do these things, but then eventually, after working with them, they don't deliver. And for some reason, I call it lying to themselves. Therefore I'm lying to myself as well, because I'm believing the lie. Anyway, so I had a problem with my first product, the solar puff, because I was teaching at Columbia and I shared all of my ideas with my students, and eventually, they ended up becoming my competitor. And it's a long story, but I was very naive at the time, because coming from a teaching background, the philosophy of teaching is sharing knowledge and sharing information and collaboration. And of course, all of those things are incredibly important in entrepreneurial ventures. But in terms of protecting an idea in the beginning, you really need to follow my advice that I gave earlier, which I didn't take early on. I should have taken that advice and had my students sign an NDA before I started my studio. So that's a lesson learned where now, we have that non-disclosure agreement handy on a second's notice. So it's not an issue. But even when you do protect yourself that way, there's still people that try to steal your idea. So with the CS95 mask, I think during our crowdfunding campaign, our crowdfunding campaign was for 30 days and our video was watched almost 200,000 times.
That's
And
incredible.
so there were people from China that basically took our pictures from our crowdfunding campaign, opened up their own store on a website using our photographs. And now, we even filed a patent in China as well, and trademark in China. But there's always that balance of, do you spend the money, if you have $1 million, do you spend it on inventory and your company, or do you spend it on lawyers doing litigation? I'd rather spend the money on the company.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's hard to know what to do about that. What copycats that can just that will do that, and it takes a while to get a patent, and like you said, then it takes money to get a patent, and then money to enforce a patent. And so, in a lot of ways, you just have to have a better product or get there first. And I guess is that how do you deal with people that do that copycatting and things like that?
Well, definitely better product, because you can tell when something's a cheap Chinese knockoff. I mean, I don't know if that was, forgive me for if I wasn't politically correct there, but people understand when something's a cheap knockoff.
Yes.
And so our products are better, so you'll see the quality difference, but also what's really important is that you start branding and marketing your product so that you stay ahead of the copycats, that you're always innovating before they do, because they're always left in your dust trying to keep up with what you're innovating. So the other thing that you should be doing is protecting your brand, so that your brand begins to resonate with the market as authentic and original.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you're talking about, continuing to innovate, tell us maybe a little bit, if we could talk on Solight as the example. I imagine you kind of got one product, like this is it 500th time or whatever it was, but you really landed that, and like, this is the one we're going to put out in the market. But then if when people go to your website, you can see multiple different types of lights.
Right.
How did that sort of evolve? And did you know, like, right away you were going to do multiple different products and keep evolving, or how did that all happen?
That's the beauty of design, is it's always about a projection into the future. And whether you're doing graphic design or architecture or product design, it's having that idea, which is intangible, and making it tangible. So, and when you're in the process of making it tangible, you're constantly thinking about improving everything, because once you see it in real life, you kind of look at all of the flaws and how to make it better. And that's when all the iterations come into place. And at a certain point, like right now with the CS95 mask, I could keep going with the details on this thing that, I've been sweating and, in a fetal position in the bathroom, going over the details. But at a certain point, I have to deliver these. And you have to stop and, finish mass production, and then you plan for the next mass production batch for any kind of improvements that you would make.
Yeah, I certainly understand that. Another question, do you have a design patent on your Solight products? Or do you have a utility patent, which is that covers the invention and not the design?
I have a utility patent for both. I did not apply for a design patent because I felt my patent attorneys felt like the utility patent was more valuable.
Right, right. That's I think that's good advice. If you have sort of a product that a lot of people might have that really the differentiation is on the design itself, the look and the feel, that would be good reason to have a design patent. But you can also get both. It just sort of depends. And on the CS95, is it the same? You have at least a utility patent pending right now, is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have, we filed a non-provisional patent this past June. But the year before I did the crowdfunding campaign, I filed the provisional patent before I launched the crowdfunding campaign.
Okay, gotcha. So, I think the crowdfunding is a really excellent approach, because a lot of people, they have great ideas and they don't have friends that can give them thousands of dollars, or they don't have these angel investors. You've done it a couple of times now. Would that sort of be your recommended approach for somebody that's got a great idea, they've got inspiration, they've got opportunity, they know what they want to do, they just need some help financially? Would you recommend sort of the approach you took? Are there other opportunities or other ways to go off and get some assistance?
Absolutely. I would highly recommend doing a crowdfunding campaign. And before you do that, though, you should do a lot of research on how to do successful campaigns, and research every campaign that's similar to your idea, or in the same category at least, and finding the successful ones, and kind of doing forensics on all of them to see what is it about that campaign that made that, such a success, but also doing the research outside of crowdfunding in terms of marketing your campaign as well.
Okay. Let's see. So, kind of getting back to the inventor theme. In my experience, a lot of people have great ideas, and they're working every day at their jobs and building things and designing things, but they don't think of themselves as inventors. I think it's just a mindset. When did you realize that you actually are an inventor?
As soon as my patent attorney called me and said I got an allowance, she said, "Congratulations, you're one of the 8% women that have patents in the United States." And as soon as I got my first patent, I think I have like 4. One's patent pending, but in any case, the first one's always the hardest. But I was thinking about this the other day, that kids can't go to college and sign up for a degree in being an inventor. Like, how would they learn how to be an inventor and navigate, especially the patent process, which is very, very, it's difficult if you're not a patent attorney and have had all that experience, if you're young and just a student. So I kind of feel like in education, we're lacking in that niche of opportunity for students to be able to have that kind of resource if that's what they are interested in doing. And I believe that there's a lot of kids that have amazing ideas that never see it into reality because they're told, you know, you should be a doctor or you should be a, you know, something that continues the family name. Or I think what's really important is for kids to find and hone, ask yourselves in the morning, what gives you energy? What gives you passion? What are you passionate about? What do you believe in? Do you believe in helping people? Do you believe in making lives better? And the other thing is, there are many solutions out there. And when you're in school, you're always taught that there's always one right answer because you get 100% on a paper when you get all the right answers. But in real life, there is no right answer. There could be many answers. And you can also change the question in real life. So remember that. That's the most important thing, is to think critically, because for inventorships, there's solutions out there, but what you're really doing, it's not about finding a solution to a problem, it's problematizing the solution. And that's where invention happens.
That's a fascinating approach, a fascinating way to think about that. Your experience is really incredible. When you said it's hundreds of iterations, I mean, that's a lot of obstacles. What were some of the other obstacles that you've faced sort of as an entrepreneur and as an inventor? And then, you know, how do you push through those obstacles? How do you overcome those?
Friends and family, you need your support group. Like I said in the beginning, when you decide, and if you read all the books about entrepreneurship, because I was a professor, I was teaching architecture and design, but the good thing about those two disciplines is that they both require discipline and imagination. And when you start building relationships, and you can start now, you can start when you're in elementary school and you might not even know it, but building those relationships of people that are like-minded, like you, that are inspired by the same things that you are, and they might not be in the same discipline, but I would encourage you to make friends that are in almost the opposite disciplines that you're interested in, so that you can complement each other.
That's excellent. Well, we have a few minutes left, so I just want to encourage our audience members, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and Alice will answer those. So, boy, you know, Solight is quite a bit different than, you know, completely different market and completely different need and challenges than CS95. When you went and you started CS95, was, you know, what sort of, did the Solight design really, did that sort of whole process help shape how you went about CS95? Was it easier in some ways? Was it harder? Kind of how do those experiences sort of relate as you've kind of progressed?
I do feel like the idea is more protected in CS95, whereas the first time around, we have actually two competitors in the market, but their products, you have to inflate with your mouth. There's like a nozzle, which I told, and they're both related to me. And they're competitors now because I shared my idea early on. But anyway, my philosophy though is that there's 7 billion people in the world. A quarter of humanity don't have access to electricity. So 20 companies would not fulfill the need of solar energy for a quarter of humanity. So that's not the issue. It's really for CS95. I learned a lot from my mistakes, and I was able to circumvent any kind of mistakes with patent filing and protecting the idea and prototyping. I was much more careful with this new invention. The link between the two is really climate change and pollution. Solar energy is going to solve carbon emissions. It's going to give light by allowing people to hold the sun in your hands. And all of our materials are non-toxic and recyclable. So the masks that you see every day on the street, in the garbage, in the grass, the surgical masks, the one-time disposable N95 masks, those are all made out of plastic. They're made out of air-spun polypropylene, and that will last 450 years in the ocean. And every country on the planet, each country wastes 5.3 billion masks.
Wow.
So if you multiply that by each country, you're looking at, like 50 to 80 billion masks being thrown away. And that has got to stop, because our coral reefs are dying already. The aquatic life are next to nil already. We're trying to save the planet now. So in terms of sustainability and climate change, both products are very, very linked.
That's first of all, that's a staggering statistic, and it's also really inspiring. How you've taken your own ideas and you're addressing climate change. You're addressing it through invention and through starting businesses, right? And I think that's really the way. My personal belief is the way we'll all deal with climate change is through innovation, and people seeing needs and they want to do the right thing, and they can also make money at it, and that spurs more investment, things like that. We do have a question, and then we'll probably be pretty close to wrapping up. The question is, has anyone used your invention in a way that you hadn't originally thought of?
So for the solar puff, so it flat packs it's very thin, and then it pops open into a light cube. And one person, he wrote us a letter and said that his inkjet printer was stuck, and he slipped his solar puff in the flat position into the printer so that he could see what was stuck in there to pull it out. That was the most unusual use of that solar lantern. But in terms of testing, just the guys on the boats, they always want to be macho. So they would, use it as an anchor light, drag them behind the boat. They're all waterproof, and they stand up to a lot of abuse. But other than that, I mean, people use them for gardens, for events, for parties, for camping and outdoors. They're perfect. They're the best for camping and outdoors because they're so light and they flat pack. They don't take up any room in your bag. So, but in terms of our social mission, we're still helping. I just came back from Haiti. There was a earthquake just August, just a few months ago. And I went and I delivered lights to the hillsides of Haiti. And for them, if you're not living with electricity, it's almost these things are like magic to them.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it's very emotional for them. And for me, it's really important because I get, um, because of all the research that I've done, having light in regions where there's tent camps is incredibly important for young girls and women because they get attacked when they go to the bathroom at night. So it's very light is also safety and security and surveillance as well as hope. So and then with the mask, it's not out on the market yet. We're finishing up mass production, but we'll see what they use it for.
Yeah, those are such great stories, Alice. They really are. Well, we have a great final question, and we're really about out of time. But uh, the question is, do you have any advice for future entrepreneurs? And maybe I'd say, like, what's the one thing, advice-wise, somebody should do as an entrepreneur, and that maybe they should not do? But that's a great question. Thanks so much for that question.
I think one of the most important things you should do before going on a venture, an entrepreneurial venture, is research. That you should be extremely observant of the world around you and the data of whatever product or idea that you're coming up with. Research the market and find out the need, and then tweak that to your, you know, the way that you develop the idea so that it adapts and makes better any of the solutions that are already out there, or maybe those solutions are obsolete now. So I think the research and understand your market, understand the product, understand your customers, like who's going to be buying this product. How are you going to make, that gardener, um, that gardener's life easier because they have this light when they're, still in the garden late at night. Or for this CS95 mask, I'm getting a lot of people writing that old elderly couples in the hospital where the couples need to communicate with each other because he's lost his hearing and he's bedridden, and the only way that he can communicate with his wife anymore is to read her lips. So
Wow.
things like that, understand the impact that you're going to have for your customer, and never, if you really believe in this product, and you'll see it once you do all of the research and it starts to reinforce your idea, you're going to believe it in it even more and more and more with all the data and the research coming in behind you. It's almost like a foundation for your invention, and it'll be something that you'll be able to stand on for the future when you're asking for money from investors. And that's really important when you start pitching in front of people, to have that confidence and belief in what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Alice. That is really excellent advice. Thank you so much. We're really out of time now. I really appreciate everybody that's attended and listened to Alice's story. And Alice, thank you so much. So impressive. It's so inspiring what you're doing. And I
Thanks
hope
for
you've inspired
being
some
a
people as
great
well.
interviewer. You were awesome to have this dialogue with. Thank you so much, Bart. You're
Well, you're
amazing.
welcome. You're welcome. Thank you, Alice. And okay, everybody, appreciate you attending and enjoy the rest of your day.